So if you're looking for a wine fridge to store your wines in your house, but you're having a little bit of trouble on deciding on which one to get, I've got a great value recommendation for you here today. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'm Tony Margiotta, author of Hidden Gems of Italy. Make sure you subscribe to Gladiator Wine TV so you don't miss out on the inside scoop on Italian wine and much more. So let's come on in and have a look at my wine fridge. So some people may have a wine cellar in their basement. Some people might have just a concrete basement to store their wines. And then some people might not have any place to store their wines. And so really that's where the wine fridge comes into play. Now, even if you have a wine cellar, maybe you still want to have a sort of like a small stash up on the main level of your house that you can get to. So I ended up picking the Calamera 50 bottle wine fridge. It's a nice compact unit, as you can see here. It's a little bit, maybe over 3 feet tall, about maybe 2 feet wide. It's got a nice little silver handle on here, and it has some nice wooden shelves on the inside. They're a little bit chintzy. You have to kind of be delicate with them. I read some reviews of people breaking these wooden shelves. I'm gonna pull one out and show you in a second, but I'm overall pleased with the quality of the construction of this wine fridge. As you can see here, there's a little blue light. I'm gonna zoom in on it in a second. I have it at 59 degrees. That's my personal preference to have my wine fridge. I know a lot of the wine literature says to store your wines at 55 degrees, but I just think that when it comes to drinking red wines, if I have it at 55 degrees, it's just gonna take that much longer before it gets a little bit warmer to like a drinking temperature. I don't drink my red wines at 55 degrees. I find that at 55 degrees, the wine is just simply too cold, and I can't really taste the nuance flavors in the wine, and it sort of kind of gives me a masked flavor profile, and I'm not maximizing the best that my wine has to offer. So I like to store at 59. It's good enough to protect the wine. I've seen people who have not used the wine fridge, and even having air condition in their houses, say at 75 degrees or 72 degrees, whatever they have, I've seen corks pop out of the bottles because the humidity was too high in their house. And this wine fridge eliminates that worry that even though I might have air conditioning in my house at, say, 70 degrees, the humidity could destroy the wine. Even at 70 degrees, even the flavor profile will be diminished as well, especially if it's something that's being stored for a long period of time. I do have, like in a cabinet over here, you can't see in this video, but I have another separate cabinet that's not temperature controlled, that I do have some everyday drinking wines that I'm not concerned about them necessarily going bad, because I'm probably going to drink them much sooner than later. I have no intention of aging these wines. These are some of my everyday drinking wines. For this stash here in the wine fridge, I put sort of my more important wines that I know will evolve in the bottle, and also higher priced ticket items that cost a lot of money, and I want to protect those wines. If this is the only temperature controlled area for your wines in your home, you don't have a wine cellar, you don't have a basement, for example, you definitely want to put your best wines, your sort of most prized possessions in your wine fridge. So let's come on in and take a look into my wine fridge. As I said earlier, there's a little light here. As you can see, it's at 59 degrees. I forget how low it can go. Another thing I'll mention about this particular wine fridge is it's a single zone wine fridge, which is different from a dual zone wine fridge. Some people like to store their white wines and their red wines in their wine fridge, and the dual zone wine fridges have separate sections. So say the top section, the top half will be the colder zone, and you can drop Usually wine fridges like that, you can drop the temperature down to about 42 degrees or so, like a regular fridge. And then the bottom section would be for the reds, and those machines typically don't allow the red zone to go below 55 degrees, for example. This is a single zone, so it's all the same temperature from top to bottom. I do have some white wines in here as well, because here's the way I see it. Some of my white wines, like a couple that I'm going to show you in this wine fridge, are age-worthy white wines, and so they're valuable to me because they're going to evolve over time in the bottle, and they're just simply more worthy wines. I will keep them in this wine fridge at 59 degrees, even though I will not drink them at 59. I just find that to be a safer temperature. I don't want to store my white wines long-term at 42 degrees because that can also put some wear and tear on the corks, and basically you'll have a ruined white wine. I've had wines that have been overly, white wines I've had that were overly refrigerated, and these were wines that I was very familiar with, and when I tasted them, they tasted a little flat to me. They still had some flavor, but they were flattening. The acidity was being killed. And so I like to store my white wines at the same temperature as my red wines, and the day of, when I know I'm going to have a bottle of white wine or 2 bottles of white wine, I will take it out maybe a couple hours before dinner or before lunch and put it in my regular refrigerator in the house and drop it down to, say, 42 degrees. But honestly, I prefer drinking my white wines at 50 degrees. So I might pull out that white wine from the refrigerator, say, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes before it's time to sit down and eat and have some wine. So that's how I like to do it, but it's not necessarily the only way you can do it. Let's have a look here. Now you're probably going to notice very quickly that the temperature in this fridge is going to go up now that I've opened it. Not a big deal. It's not going to kill the wine by showing you this for a few minutes here. But basically, the refrigerator claims to store 50 or 51 bottles of wine. That's simply not the case, but that's the case with all of your wine fridges. They all claim to store, let's say, 30 bottles, and then you can only store 20 bottles, or it might say you can store 50 bottles and you only can store 35 bottles, etc. They're all like that, so no reason to be disappointed. Just lower your expectations. If you want to store more bottles, you have to pick a fridge that can contain even more bottles than you were planning on storing, okay? So again, they claim this to be a 50 bottle storage unit, and I think I have about 32 bottles in here at the moment. I can probably squeeze in a few more bottles, but I'm not too sure about that. It really all depends on the bottle shapes from the different wineries that I buy from. And so more of the classic Bordeaux style bottles, which happen to have like a 2 3/4 inch diameter at the bottom, those you can fit more bottles on each layer, okay? And so obviously anything that's above 2.75 inch diameter is going to take up more space naturally. It's really hard to control that. That's sort of out of our hands. So just, you know, keep your expectations low with how many bottles you can put in the wine fridge. It's not really the company that makes the fridge's fault. It's not really their fault because they don't know what bottles you're going to be buying. So some bottles are too long, some are too short, some are too fat, some are too skinny. So as you can see up here, I've got a Magnum bottle. I like this upper layer here. Actually, you can put another layer of wood. I actually pulled out a couple layers of wood, by the way, just to fit more bottles for me for my personal situation. So I have a Magnum up here, and it fits very nicely in there. I had to pull out one of the layers, but it was important to me to put this bottle in the wine fridge. Want to see what it is? Let's take a look. This is a Magnum of a 2012 Amarone De La Vapolicella from the Ugolini family estate. I haven't decided yet when I'm going to drink this. We're filming this in 2021. By October, it will be officially 9 years old, this wine. I'm anticipating it to still be at the very beginnings of its life, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna open it this year. I might wait for the 10-year anniversary to open it up. I'm not a patient person, so I tend not to wait too long for my wines to age. You never know. I mean, I might not be here tomorrow. I want to drink this bottle today, you know what I mean? So let's put this back in here. Notice I didn't even pull the shelf out, but why don't we pull out, which shelf should I do? Let's pull out this shelf here so you can see it better. So again, I told you the wood is a little bit chintzy, a little bit cheap. It's got a nice look, but it is breakable. And so the more weight you put on them and the rougher you are pulling the shelves out, the more likely you are to break it. So I just be gentle and just, you know, take care of your stuff. That's all, and it's gonna be fine. Notice I had to adjust that bottle to get it out, okay? And now the shelves only come out halfway, okay? These are not real drawers per se, okay? Again, you can pull them out completely, but you don't want to do that. So I have it out about halfway, and that should be just enough for me to get my bottles out. So let's take a look and see what's on this shelf. I actually have a bottle of white wine here. Let's pull that one out real quick. Okay, so this is a very special white wine from Sicily, from the Castellucci Miano estate, and they nicknamed the bottle Shiara, which is named after a small plot of antique vines up in the Madonnine Mountains of Sicily. They're actually very old vines, hence there's a stamp here that says 𝐦𝐨𝐵𝐿 vigne, meaning old vines, and this is 100% indigenous Catarratto white grapes from Sicily. This is the Cru of Catarratto in Sicily. If you've never had Catarratto before, this is the bottle, okay? Don't go to a store and buy a $15 bottle of Catarratto. You're likely to not be impressed. Just go straight to the best. This is a $35 bottle of wine if you want to experience the best. If you want to do a little comparison, pick up a $20 bottle. But this is life-changing white wine, okay? On this shelf, I also have a Taurasi from Campania, from the Antico Borgo estate. This is a Taurasi Riserva, and it's a 2011. So this wine is already over 10 years. I bought a bunch of this stuff. I have a couple bottles here, and I also have some more stored in my warehouse to protect the rest of my stock. This is also a phenomenal bottle of wine. They make just 3,000 bottles a year. Real serious stuff. Not to mention the fact it's a small artisanal winery. One of the best Taurasi producers that I've come across, and I've tasted over 75 different wineries, and this is definitely at my top. And by the way, for those of you who don't know what Taurasi is, it's a red wine. I have another video which documents the story and the history behind this wine, so you can just go to my YouTube channel, Taurasi, the wines of Taurasi. Just look for that on my YouTube channel, and you'll find it's a fascinating story and a fascinating wine behind it. From the same winery, for those of you that like white wine or want to have a nice white wine, this is a Fiano Di Avelino, and Fiano is one of the most important white grapes that are indigenous to Italy. It's a very important wine. It's also an age-worthy wine, and its history really sort of overlaps with the Taurasi, and hence it's also coming from the Antico Borgo winery. And I really am sort of fascinated with this wine because it truly does evolve in the bottle, and you don't have to wait 10, 20, 30 years like some Barolo and some Brunello di Montalcino to reach sort of a high level of tasting experience. So I really like this wine. I like to drink white wines in the summer. I like to drink white wines when I'm having seafood or fish. You know, I can get away with having like a steak dinner or pasta dinner with no wine, but I cannot, this is one of my like pet peeves, I cannot have fish without white wine. So this is one of my top picks as well. They make about 10,000 bottles a year by hand. This is a great white wine that needs to be stored in a dry, cool place because it is age-worthy and it does evolve in the bottle. And you don't have to wait forever to experience it. I mean, I drink this wine at least once every 2 to 3 months, and I can see that it continuously changes and evolves. It actually changes and evolves while I'm having dinner. It's a really, truly fascinating wine that doesn't get much attention, which is a pity. You see how I'm being very delicate putting this all back in? I don't know if you can see back here, but I have more bottles that I can store, right? So sort of the bottom of the bottle gets stored here, and then in the back, bottles are sort of like facing each other, okay? And so here, same winery. For those of you who are a little bit more budget conscious, who want to drink wines like Taurasi wines from Italy, this is sort of like, dare I say, a baby Taurasi. The appellation is called 𝐜𝐵𝐵 Campi Taurasini. It's also 100% 𝐜𝐨𝐵𝐿, just like the Taurasi, and it drinks just as well. The little insider secret with this particular wine from the Antico Borgo winery, it's pretty much the same vineyard as the Taurasi vineyards, the same grapevines that they use to make the Taurasi. The only difference is sort of the aging period, and the aging process is a little bit different. Okay, great drinking wine, decanted 2 to 4 hours, and it goes from like an 8 to a 10. Great, serious wine for like $25. So now I'm gonna slide that back in, nice and easy. And I'm gonna put my Catarratto back in here as well. And notice how this is a very tall sort of Riesling style bottle, by the way. And this also fits nicely in the fridge. And again, nice and easy, nice and easy. It'll be fine. Okay, what else do I have in here that I can show you? Look, why don't we just, oh, this is the other thing I wanted to point out before I do a new shelf. There was another shelf down here, okay? But I took it out, and it's a little bit sloppy, I will admit, but there was a little bit of a method to my madness with this whole thing. And that's because I have some bottles down here with such an irregular shape, beautiful shaped bottle, by the way, but they're too big to go on my main layers. And so they happen to be important bottles of wine to me. And so I decided to sacrifice the shelf, pull the shelf out, and store them. You can see them right here at the bottom. I'm gonna pull them out and show you what they are. But I had to pull the shelf out in order to make it work. And so to maximize my space, once I've done that, as you can see, I've sort of in a sloppy way stacked a few bottles on top. So you have to be very careful. Again, you don't want to break your bottles either. But as long as you take your time, everything's going to be fine. So now for me to get to this bottle, I have to pull out some other bottles. Okay, nice and easy. What do I have here? Actually, it's another one of these big, beautiful bottles that I was telling you about. And this is a Cannonau from the island of Sardegna in Italy. And it's their reserve. It's from the Atha Ruja estate. They make about 3,000 bottles a year, 3,300 bottles. They actually number every single bottle in each vintage. And this is a very serious wine. The people of Sardinia say if you drink this wine, you'll live 100 years. There's only one way to find out, of course. Lots of story and history behind this wine. Notice the little symbol of the mother goddess of the Nuragic civilization that existed in Sardinia between 3,000 and 8,000 years ago. Also, you know, very, very fascinating story inside the bottle. And this is, I'm looking at, I think this is, yeah, this is the 2016 vintage. But if you come down here, I will show you I have some older vintages of the Cannonau Reserve. I have a 2014 Reserve right here, which is also in great condition. And I might have, oh, see that? Almost fell on me. This is something that I picked up. This is a bottle that I picked up while I was in Sardinia, in a small historical wine city called Dorgali, which has a very, very long history of winemaking, thousands of years going back to ancient Rome. Actually, the Romans nicknamed the city of wine. Today it's called Dorgali, and I picked it up. I haven't tasted it yet, but I'm looking forward to tasting this wine at some point. And yes, so I'm gonna pull out another Cannonau Reserve, and this is also a 2014. I thought I had a 2013 in here. Maybe that's what this is. No, I don't. My 2013s must be gone. So this is 2014s, and I have one 2016 in here. But this wine, I have had it 10 years old, having drunk it at the producer's personal wine cellar in Sardinia. And so I can attest to the fact that this Cannonau is definitely age-worthy. I will say that even though it is age-worthy, which probably many wine people would be surprised to know that Cannonau is age-worthy, but one thing I'm noticing about Cannonau from Sardinia, which is one of my favorite grapes, by the way, it doesn't evolve in the bottle like a Nebbiolo does or like Sangiovese does. What happens is sort of the acidity softens, the tannins soften, but the flavor profile really remains intact, which I don't find that to be the case with Nebbiolo. I find that the flavor profile really changes as the wine ages. And this is just another bottle of, this is a great value Cannonau. The Reserve I was just showing you is about $65. This one is $25 from the same estate. This is not the Reserve, but it's practically the same thing. It's an incredible value wine for, again, $25, $27. This is the 2018, and even the non-Reserve, this will last in my cellar for 10 to 15 years easily, but it won't last because I'm gonna drink them all. Okay, so now I'm gonna put this in, sort of put the head in first to get it in there. And what else do I have very quickly that you might want to see? We'll go back up to the other layers, okay? So let's pull out another shelf, and I just want to show you again. I mean, I'm showing you another shelf. Not just to show you what I have on the shelf, but also to show you that the different types of bottle shapes and sizes that I have in here. There's actually quite a bit of variety, which the wine fridge makers just can't anticipate your needs. That's where having a custom wine cellar builder really comes into play. Okay, that's pretty much it. So here I only have 4 bottles on this shelf. I'm a little disappointed about that. I'd like to have at least 5 bottles. I'll have to play around with this. Here's the other thing you can do is sometimes if you're not getting enough bottles on a shelf, play around with sort of the combination of different bottle sizes, because you might surprise yourself and get something to fit in there better than you would have hoped for. So what do I have here? Here I have a Barbaresco Reserve. Okay, this is 2015. This is a magnificent bottle of wine. This is a single vineyard cru from the Serragrilli, which is considered one of the cru of Barbaresco. Very special bottle. The producer, Battaglio, is the name of the producer, and he only makes 300 bottles a year of this. So it's a very rare, very special bottle, very much off the beaten path. You won't find his wines in the magazines per se. He's really a salt of the earth type of person. His family has a very long history of winemaking and farming. Age-worthy for 25 years easily. But what I love about Barbaresco, and this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, is Barbaresco is actually quite pleasing to drink young. I mean, maybe not when it's first released necessarily, but you don't have to wait till the end of your life to drink it. Yeah, that's what I love about Barbaresco. Lots of bright fruits and floral notes, like right from the start. You know, they release, now the reserves are released 50 months after the harvest, so that's like 4 years and change, and you can pretty much start drinking them right at that point if you want. What I like to do is, you know, buy a bunch of cases and sort of drink them over time, because I'm not going to wait 10 years to start opening up a bottle of wine. I don't have time for that. What else do I have here? I have on this shelf, which is also a large bottle of wine, large and super heavy glass. This is another Amarone De La Vapolicella 2013 from the Ugolini estate, which is basically like my favorite pick from the Valpolicella wineries. Love this wine, but super big bottle. Even though it takes up extra space, for me, it's worth it, totally worth it. This is the 2013, and I've been drinking this already, and it is powerful, powerful, complex wine. I will hold on to some and drink it while it ages, but I'm not gonna wait for it to age completely. I've been drinking this wine for about a year now, and it's a lot of fun. Oh, what do you know? I actually did sneak one of those big Cannonau bottles onto the shelf here. Now here's another little trick. Again, be patient, be delicate. I lift this shelf ever so slightly to pull out the bottom one. It barely fit, okay? But I got a lot of bottles on this shelf. So to me, it was worth it. I've definitely maximized the space. So how did I do that? All different types of sizes, okay? All different types of sizes. So I've got another Barbaresco Reserve, which you can see right here. I have another very custom bottle here, which is sort of a very tall and skinny bottle. This is the Grand Cru of Bovale, an indigenous grape, actually the most antique grape from the island of Sardegna. Super historical grape, comes from a centenarian's vineyard, meaning that the producer, a little backstory, the producer found an antique vineyard in the center of Sardinia, where a lot of Bovale is grown, by the way, and purchased from this particular farmer. But he purchased several 100-year-old vines of Bovale and regrafted them at his estate winery in Dorgali, and that's what we have here. It's actually an age-worthy wine. Again, when people talk about age-worthy wines, they think about Bordeaux, they think about Barolo, they think about Brunello di Montalcino. What they don't think about is Bovale, and that's okay. It's a very obscure wine, but in Sardinia, it's a very, very highly respected wine, which is capable of creating very full-bodied, powerful, complex wines of the ancient world. Lots of beautiful fruits and spices, super long finish. The tannins are super velvety. They just remind me of pillows. Just very soft but big tannins, big and soft. And this is a 2012. And again, we're filming this in 2021, so this is gonna have its 9-year anniversary in just a few more months. Notice the historical figure of the mother goddess of prehistoric Sardinia. So that will stay in my wine fridge as well. And then finally, I'll just show you one last bottle, which is 100% Perricone. This is really, for me, an everyday drinking wine. This sits on the shelf for about $26. They make about 10,000 bottles a year of this. I have it in the fridge in part because this particular vintage, the 2019, is one of the most age-worthy vintages that the estate has created from the Castellucci Miano winery. And so Perricone is also an age-worthy grape as it turns out. So I want to follow this vintage and see how it develops in the bottle. So anyway, this is the Calamera 50 bottle wine fridge. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe to Gladiator Wine TV, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.